Is evolution a fact or just a theory? What was the origin of our ancestors? Good day to all of our viewers. Life on Earth began about 4 billion years ago. A vast number of plant and animal species have evolved over billions of years. Evolution is responsible for the existence of every single tree, plant, animal, and creature that you see around you today. Humans, or Homo sapiens, are one of these species. However, the question of why apes still exist is raised if humans descended from them. What prevented all of these gorillas, chimps, and monkeys from evolving into humans? People ask such queries all the time. There are those that reject evolution. It's a falsehood. How accurate is the theory of evolution? Is it a fact or just a theory? And how did the evolution of these various animal species occur? In this video, let's find out. Let's start by dispelling the most common myth. The theory of evolution does not say that humans descended from monkeys. Rather, it asserts that humans, gorillas, monkeys, and chimpanzees are all descended from the same ancestor. Furthermore, that ancestor no longer exists. Consider a tree to help you picture evolution. One stem is all that a tree has at first. It then develops branches. After then, its branches get smaller. You can see the tree's tips if it continues to grow in this manner. All currently existing life things are those endpoints. However, one mystery that will never go away is why some of our ancestors evolved into humans, while others became chimps or monkeys. Why? The solution will be revealed later in this video. Charles Darwin penned the seminal work On the Origin of Species in 1859. He discussed the theory of natural selection in this book. Now the phrase theory of natural selection may conjure images of a mysterious object. All living things must have some intricate internal engineering. However, no, it's quite easy. Genes are passed down from one generation to the next whenever there is reproduction, whether it be in humans, animals, plants, or trees. Our offspring inherit our genes, but certain mutations are carried over by the genes. The genes have undergone minor alterations. A few variances are visible. Furthermore, subsequent generations frequently inherit these mutations. For instance, if your children have green eyes and you have brown eyes, this indicates that their genes have undergone a mutation. The genes that determine eye color underwent a mutation. It's feasible that their offspring will have green eyes too in the future. These differences can frequently be advantageous or detrimental, depending on the surroundings. Some endure, while others disappear. We refer to this process as natural selection. For illustration, suppose there is a brown frog that inhabits a jungle. It is the parent of 5 children. One is green, while the other 4 are all brown in color. The green frog has good self-disguisement skills and can blend in with the green foliage. It has an advantage because of this. The brown frogs are easily seen, so one day a predator comes and eats them. However, because this green frog is safe and without spots, its progeny will likewise be green in color. Broadly speaking, natural selection theory operates in a similar manner. The phrase survival of the fittest is used here, although many motivational speakers misapply it by claiming that only those who are physically fit would be able to survive. People tend to believe that the theory of natural selection will only allow individuals with large triceps, biceps, and six-pack abs to survive. However, this assertion is untrue. Fit is not equate to being the biggest or most strong individual. Fit, in the words of Charles Darwin, is the ability to adapt well to one's surroundings. Here, environment refers to more than just the surrounding air quality and temperature. It also encompasses the nearby flora and fauna, who best suits the circumstances. Therefore, your level of fitness may fluctuate over time. Natural selection caused certain dinosaurs to evolve into enormous creatures throughout the dinosaur epoch, considering that their larger stature would readily shield them from predators. On the other hand, being fit means making concessions in times of scarcity, in order to also decrease the need to eat. Thus, some shrank in size through evolution. In a similar vein, several animals have evolved to cover more of their bodies with hair in order to provide greater insulation from the cold, similar to polar bears. It is simpler for them to stay warm in cold weather because of their thick fur. However, other animals, such as humans, have evolved to have less body hair, to make it simpler for them to control their body temperature during the summer, enabling easy perspiration, which aids in body cooling. Now that you know the fundamentals, let's examine how evolution came to be. Every species shares a common ancestor if you travel back in time on the evolutionary tree. Monkeys and humans share an ancestor. There is a common ancestor between cows, buffaloes, and humans. There is a common ancestor for all plants, trees, and animals. Time travel reveals that it started some 4 billion years ago. At that time, the Earth was very different. On Earth, there were no continents. There was only water covering the Earth, and life originated in this water. Which organism was the first? This first organism has been given a straightforward name by scientists. The term first universal common ancestor has been applied to it. It became, in brief, Fuca. There were no genes or DNA at that period. Only a few free-floating nucleotides came together to form an RNA. This RNA produced a PTC molecule, which then self-assembled to become Fuca. Not even a cell existed as our common ancestor. Cells are now referred to as the fundamental units of life. Was Fuca a living being, though, given it wasn't even a cell? Was it non-living or alive? It's hard to envision. However, consider it a virus. Neither living nor non-living describes a virus. A virus needs a host's body to develop and multiply on its own. Consider anything along these lines. Technical specifics are beyond the scope of this post and will be covered in another video. How a small number of components initially gave rise to nucleotides and subsequently RNAs. But let's proceed for the time being. A unicellular organism called Fuca developed 3.8 billion years ago. It is known as the last universal common ancestor, or LUCA. LUCA is the common ancestor of all living organisms on Earth, including bacteria, fungi, animals, plants, and trees. It had to have been a prokaryotic microorganism with a cell membrane, according to scientists. You must have learned in school how prokaryotes and eukaryotes vary from one another. In their cells, eukaryotes contain a functional nucleus. Prokaryotes, on the other hand, lack an appropriate nucleus. According to scientific estimates, LUCA contained roughly 355 genes. There are 355 genes in all living things that have ever existed on Earth. However, this is a rather recent finding. This was discovered in July 2016 by scientists. This finding was made by William Martin of the University of Dusseldorf. The tiniest synthetic cell that can survive and multiply on its own was made in a lab 4 months prior to this discovery. The artificial cell has 473 genes. However, LUCA had 355 instead of the synthetic cell's 356. LUCA is therefore categorized as half alive. It was not quite alive. Researchers think that the viruses that exist today either had to begin developing before LUCA or had to begin co-evolving with LUCA, because viruses have been essential to evolution from the beginning of time. Even though the COVID-19 virus was the bad apple in the virus family, all viruses are necessary for human life in the modern world. We observed LUCA multiplying by cell division, and when LUCA split into two after millions of years, evolution happened, archaea and bacteria. There is a great deal of similarity between these two microbes. Their cell walls and plasma membranes are slightly different. Evolution led to the emergence of a particularly unique type of bacteria many billions of years later. Bacteria with cyanoplasts. The first bacteria to be able to perform photosynthesis were these ones. Making energy with sunshine, oxygen was produced after using water as fuel. A significant amount of oxygen was released into the atmosphere when cyanobacteria, which are abundant in the water, employed photosynthesis. We refer to this phenomenon as the Great Oxygenation Event. As a result, the atmosphere's oxygen content increased. That was 2.2 billion years ago when this happened. However, evolution had to intervene in order to strengthen and better protect DNA. The cell's nucleus formed because of this. DNA was safeguarded within the cell to ensure its protection. Second, evolution is visible in the cytoplasm, away from the nucleus, after millions of years. Certain cyanobacteria develop into chloroplasts. This explains why photosynthesis is still possible in all plants and trees today. The plant kingdom began at this point. An ancient bacterium, on the other hand, chose to take advantage of the plentiful oxygen present in the environment to produce energy by using oxygen. The process of aerobic respiration started at this point. The bacteria underwent additional evolution within archaea to give rise to mitochondria, the cell's power plant, an essential component of all eukaryotes. These eukaryotes were later divided into 3 sub-branches, the kingdoms of algae, fungus, and animals. Another name for the algae kingdom is Protista. You may see the birth of the tree of life here. There are 3 branches at first: eukarya, archaea, and bacteria. After that, eukarya divided into algae, fungus, plants, and animals. Researchers continue to disagree about whether archaea and eukaryotes are 2 distinct branches that shared an ancestor, or if eukaryotes evolved from archaea. You're probably wondering now, when we'll witness monkeys becoming human? We are continuing discussing bacteria and other microbes here. Some individuals find it embarrassing that while we are discussing microorganisms, humans and monkeys are linked. How offensive. Friends, this is the reality. In every one of our bodies, human cells make up only 43% of the cells in our body. The remainder are archaea cells, bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Referring to the beginning of the tale, multicellular life originated about 900 million years ago. Why? Because of evolution. The cells found that grouping together made it easier to survive. Multicellular creatures were more likely to survive than unicellular ones because of their higher number of cells. We see multicellular organisms because of this. An estimated 555 million years ago, all creatures shared a common ancestor. The Wariutia of Icaria. It had the size of a rice grain. The worm was bilateral, meaning it had a front and a back. The term bilateral describes symmetry. The organism would exhibit either horizontal or vertical symmetry. It implies that a right side and a left side would exist in every organism, and there are similarities between the 2 sides. Very few things are an exception to this, like a starfish which lacks bilateral symmetry and instead possesses radial symmetry. All creatures are bilateral, whether it's a butterfly, pig, spider, or human. The fossils were discovered by scientists in South Australia, and upon carbon dating it was discovered that the remains belonged to a species that existed 555 million years ago. It was a bilateral creature as well. It is thought to be the oldest organism that has ever been found. It is referred to as the ancestor of all animals for this reason. Then came the development of vertebrates, or spine. Because they have spines, all fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals are referred to be vertebrates. Development of the first spine occurred 480 million years ago. Arrondaspes was the name of the fish. After that, the evolution of 4 legs in organisms began. The term tetrapod refers to animals with 4 legs, and in water, this evolution took place. This tale hasn't yet brought us to the shore. The fish known as Eusthenopteron lived 375 million years ago. The fish is 6 feet long, with powerful jaw muscles and pointed canines. There is a claim that it serves as the link between all fish and land vertebrates. The fish moved from the water to the ground, saying perhaps that one day fear is the path to victory. I'm not serious. It is not how evolution operates. Take a look at this creature. In 2004, the Tiktaalik rosii was found. Its large forefins allowed it to sustain itself while it lived on the ground. This species had to have been residing in a shallow ocean, given the circumstances. Climate change has frequently caused the ocean to retreat, forcing it to stay on land where it was able to live. It could bite and devour because of its crocodile-like cranium. However, this does not imply that every organism made the transition from water to land. There is never a straight path in evolution. It travels in multiple directions. Any direction can lead to evolution. This Tiktaalik was related to this fish, Wake Kikiktania. It is thought that after spending some time on land, it returned to the water since it was unable to adjust to the new environment. Likewise, some creatures emerged from the sea and returned to the land to continue their evolution. Dolphins and whales are 2 excellent instances of this. Mammals include dolphins and whales. Compared to fish, they are more closely linked to humans. They are unable to breathe underwater, unlike fish. To breathe, they must rise to the surface. This implies that there must have been a common ancestor between humans and dolphins who lived on the ground. A portion of those forefathers' descendants returned to the sea, while others remained on land. If we proceed with the narrative, amphibians started to evolve 368 million years ago. Amphibians are land-dwelling creatures that can also live in water, such as salamanders and frogs. The evolution of reptiles then started. Crocodiles, lizards, snakes, turtles, and alligators. Later on, dinosaurs descended from this branch. The first known dinosaurs lived around 230 million years ago. And I went into great length about their evolutionary history in the dinosaur movie if you're interested. When did dinosaurs go extinct and when did they begin to evolve first? Going ahead 225 million years ago, we witnessed this mouse-like creature, 20 centimeters in length. Brasilodon quadrangularis is its name. It is currently regarded as the world's oldest animal. It was founded the previous year. Prior to discovery, experts thought that Morganeucodon, which had a semblance to this, was the oldest mammal in the world. 205 million years ago, it was in existence. It was once an egg-laying species, which makes it intriguing. We all know that mammals are one type of animal that is fed milk from their mother. Mammals include dogs, cats, tigers, lions, humans, and monkeys. Mammals don't typically lay eggs. However, those rare mammals known as monotremes are those who do lay eggs. There are 5 species of monotremes extant today. The platypus is one of them. Fossils of platypus have been discovered that date back 120 million years. The platypus of today was not much that different from those fossils. Only a few things had changed. For this reason, the platypus is regarded as one of the oldest living creatures. In mammals, there are 2 other lineages besides monotremes. The marsupials and the placentals, mammals that develop their offspring in the uterus of their mother, include humans. However, marsupials, like kangaroos and koalas, have pouches where their young develop. Thus, among these 3 groups of mammals, there are essentially 3 distinct approaches to child rearing. Firstly, by releasing eggs. Taking care of it in the womb is the second. Thirdly, put it in a pouch to nurture it. Because the young consume their mother's milk, they are all included in the mammal category. 166 million years ago, monotremes separated from the other species of mammals. Subsequently, placental mammals and marsupials underwent divergent evolutionary paths 125 million years ago. Australia, Antarctica, and South America were united until 40 million years ago. Therefore, these three continents saw the spread of marsupials as they evolved. Antarctica had no ice in it at that time, and Antarctica had its forests. Since these continents have split apart, marsupials are now found solely on these three continents. Nonetheless, Australia is home to the majority of marsupials. They were unable to compete with other mammals for acceptance in South America. However, they were not in competition with other mammals in Australia, which is why we can only find kangaroos and koalas there. The earliest placental mammal fossil, which dates to 125 million years ago, was discovered in northeastern China. Eomaya is the name of this mammal. In response, researchers claimed in a 2013 study that this animal lacked some characteristics shared by the other placental mammals living today. In response, Maureen O'Leary and her colleagues claimed that the earliest placental mammal was discovered barely 65 million years ago, and this is how the animal appeared. It resembled a rat even more. Since the dinosaurs had already gone extinct at this point in the history, we have arrived at the most fascinating section. The dinosaurs were all wiped out by the asteroid. However, this gave mammals an opportunity to take control. The biosphere of Earth has plenty of voids where mammals may find a place to live. According to a Science Journal study, the rise in placental mammals didn't start until after the extinction of the dinosaurs. Diversity among placental mammals would not have existed if this had not occurred. Without it, humans would not exist. The Himalayan mountains were created by the collision of the Indian and Asian tectonic plates 40 million years ago. Mammals with placentas divided into distinct branches at the same time. The ungulate branch, which includes hoofed mammals, is one example of this. This group includes camels, deer, pigs, goats, cows, buffaloes, and hippopotamuses. Later, this branch was separated into ungulates with even and odd toes. The animals that have an odd number of toes and the ones that have an even number, horses, zebras, rhinoceroses, and donkeys, are a few examples of odd-toed ungulates. The remaining specimens were ungulates with even toes. In addition to this, the Carnivora order split into another branch, mammal placental carnivorous. This category includes lions, tigers, dogs, cats, and hyenas. It's interesting to note that ungulates are the closest relatives of whales and dolphins, who are categorized as cetaceans. You're correct. It implies that the closest relatives of whales and dolphins are cows and buffaloes. Then there was the Afrotheria category. Elephants and this little creature known as the hyrax are among them. You are always surprised by evolution. How is it possible for this little species and an elephant of such size to be in the same category? How could they share an ancestor? Because evolution does not occur in a linear method, this is feasible. It occurs anywhere it fits, in all directions. What drives the process of evolution? There are four primary causes. The four forces of evolution are these four explanations. Of the four, two I have already mentioned to you. The genetic mutation is one. During reproduction, errors made during DNA replication result in random gene mutations. It might also be the result of outside influences. For example, exposure to UV light can cause skin cell mutations that lead to skin cancer. Natural selection is the second. From there, evolution proceeds based on the features of the genes that most naturally fit the habitat. However, what are the fourth and third reasons? Now let's discuss them. Genetic drifts are the third explanation. Consider it essentially as a massive environmental explosion that completely alters everything, a significant devastating occurrence. Assume for the moment that a particular animal species only exists on a particular island. On the island, a volcano erupts as well. Everything is ruined. That animal will be eliminated as well. However, if that animal's subspecies was present on a nearby island, it will have an opportunity to continue thriving following a volcanic calamity, and that subspecies will be widespread in the future. This kind of genetic drift event is known as the bottleneck effect type. This occurred hundreds of years ago in America. All throughout America, one might find North American bison, but it was hunted to extinction by mankind. However, a subspecies known as the plains bison managed to survive in an American national park. The bison population rebounded after conservation efforts were launched to preserve it. This subspecies made up the entire population. This developed into a bottleneck event that brought genetic drift, and all the bison that live in America now are members of the plains bison subspecies. There were only perhaps 100 distinct forebears for these bison. The 100 bison that happened to survive in Yellowstone National Park. The founder effect can be another kind of genetic drift. When an animal's small population becomes isolated before moving to a new location to breed. Humans are a fantastic example of this as well. The Amish community. There is a tiny community of Amish people in both America and Canada. There are about 250,000 people living there. About 200 years ago, their forefathers migrated from Germany and Switzerland. Remarkably, the number of visitors to America and Canada was barely 200 or such. However, they never married outsiders since their group was so closed off to outsiders. They continued to marry amongst themselves. This means that the forefathers of the 250,000 Amish people living today were among those 200 immigrants. This may seem like a great thing to racists, them marrying each other inside. However, Charles Darwin believed that a decrease in genetic diversity was not a desirable thing. A person with a recessive gene that produces Ellis-Van Creveld syndrome was one of his 200 original founders. It's an illness that causes you to have extra fingers and smaller hands and feet. Due to their continued intermarriage, this recessive gene continued to be inherited. And because of evolution, Amish people now have a disproportionately higher prevalence of this disease than any other group worldwide. Therefore, genetic diversity is always preferable from the standpoint of evolution. To observe the blending of several gene types, let's go on to the fourth rationale, gene flow. This is comparable to genetic drift. However, in this case, there is mixing between two populations as they migrate in the same direction. The insecticide resistance gene, present in African malaria mosquitoes, serves as an illustration of this. This resistance gene was discovered in a few other mosquito species. However, the pesticide resistance was passed on when the populations of those insects came into contact with the African mosquitoes. You may be thinking about the evolutionary timeline at this point. What is the rate of evolution? You watched the indisputable proof of evolution in this video. However, there isn't any data to refute this, to demonstrate the falsity of evolution. 97% of scientists are thought to agree that evolution is true. We have now reached the conclusion of our narrative, Primates' Evolutionary History. According to research published in 2021, 65.9 million years ago, the progenitor of all primates had to be living and coexisting with dinosaurs. Among the evolution of mammals, primates constituted a large branch. Only after this do gorillas, chimpanzees, monkeys, and humans begin to evolve. What took place next? In actuality, when and how did humans evolve? We should talk about this in a later video. That is worthy of its own independent video. Lastly, it's worth adding that this reminds me of a scene from the documentary All That Breathes by Shaunak Sen. It asserted that relationships are the basis of life and that we are all made of air. There should be no distinction made based on breath type. This quotation could sound ethereal. However, when considering it from the standpoint of evolutionary history, it also qualifies as a scientific assertion. Every species that is still in existence today, plants, animals, and trees, exists in balance. A state of balance where everyone coexists peacefully. In the ecology, each species has a specific place. Every organism in this ecosystem, be it a scavenger like a hyena, a shark, or a blood-sucking insect, is vital.